Hey everybody, Greg Pruitt here with Idaho Dispatch, and I am joined today with Tony Ullrich, who is the acting chairman for the Constitution Party of Idaho. Thanks for taking time to sit down with us.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Yeah, no problem. So, I mentioned that you are the acting chairman, and so I guess first, can you tell people a little bit about your involvement with the Constitution Party of Idaho and how you ultimately became the acting chairman now for the party?
Well, ultimately, I became the acting chairman because our current chairman had stepped down. He had some family issues. His mother had recently passed away. They had property and everything out of state, and he went to deal with that. So he left the state, couldn't fulfill his duties, and had to step down. I keep hearing a lot of people, what was the scandal that had him step down? But there was no scandal. There was no issue. We love Dave. He came into the party as the chairman at just a bad time. He had every intention of doing a lot of things, and it just unfortunate with his mother's health and the passing. They didn't come around. So I, as the vice chair, ended up stepping in, which is my job. My involvement with the Constitution Party is kind of a long story. It started back in the early 90s, sometime around 93, 94. I was actually a resident in Oregon. I was born and raised over out of the Portland metro area, a little west of Portland, up closer to the coast, and loved it over there. Life just changed, and it brought me to Idaho about 15 years ago. But in Oregon, I was a contractor, and being a contractor, it's in your best interest to stay up with what government's doing, because daily they change rules that affected you. And so I got pretty heavily involved with, at the time, the Republican Party, and I just started seeing the Republican Party going all sorts of sideways. The same things that are going on in Idaho right now, where they claim, we're conservative, yet they're voting for larger government, more restriction, higher taxes, more regulations, and they had a bad dose of rhinos. So I tried the party from within, and it just wasn't working. So I got involved with, at the time, was the American Taxpayers Party in Oregon, which then, I don't know if it really went Sullivan, but it rolled into being the Constitution Party of Oregon. And I was involved a bunch with its organization over there, but it just never really took off, kind of like Idaho's hasn't for the last 15 years or so, a bunch of infighting and stuff. And we've pretty much gotten rid of all that infighting, but we're still working on growing and building, and that's kind of my main goal, is to get the party active, get people involved, and start making a difference. But if we make noise, make people aware, I'm happy and content with that. I mean, I'd like for some of our candidates to actually win some races and be able to actually make a difference, but it's really educating the voters and getting them aware of that, your elected officials are telling you one thing on election day and then doing exactly the opposite the rest of the session, so it's going to be a challenge.
Okay. So, you talked about some of your goals there, I guess, in educating voters and that kind of stuff. Do you have like specific goals that you want, the party, because, third parties are typically extremely difficult in most states, not just Idaho, in almost any state. And you're obviously in a very Republican heavy state as far as the elected officials go and the populace. So, what are your, I guess, initial goals now as acting chairman in trying to make the party viable, or?
Well, right now my biggest goal is getting the party rebranded. Our previous brand wasn't bad, but it just wasn't modern. I mean, we didn't utilize tools that were available to us to promote the party. So you can tell with our Facebook page, we've done a lot with that. I'm really pushing hard to get county central committees set up right now. So we've got an outreach. The parties had really 5 or 6, maybe 7 highly active people over the last 6-7 years, and it's just too much for that small group to do. So we need to get people involved. We need to get people active, and I think we're doing a fairly good job of that. I've got a meeting set up for this coming Sunday in Ada County. There's a bunch of people that are interested in getting involved and starting the central committee there. So I'm going to run into Boise and we'll have that meeting and see if we can get something rolling there. But it'll just allow me more time to do more party stuff and less of the promotion. I mean, right now, I'm not the only person helping to promote the party, but unfortunately I have to take the lead while at the same time trying to actually run the party and maintain all the statutory rules. I mean, it's a lot of work, and when I found out I was going to be the chairman, I really was like, wow, I don't know. I was really overwhelmed, and
Sure.
I mean, I shouldn't say I wasn't ready for it, but I wasn't prepared for it. Might be a better way of saying it. And I'm finding it's been, I don't know what, right at 30 days now, I think. And it's getting easier because as I realize what I need to do and what the statutory requirements for reporting and absolutely everything else, setting up committees is, it's getting easier. But so really my main big goal right now is to just really get people involved, help take a little bit of the weight off of me, and spreading the word. We're going to push a really hard social media campaign. I appreciate the dispatch. I sent out press releases for when Dave stepped down to, 35 or 40 different media sources, and the dispatch was really the only one that reached out. I got one other email going, "What do you want me to do with this?" So it's, if we can start making noise, we can start making people aware, and that's really what it is. We need to make a lot of noise, and our Facebook page is showing we're doing a fairly decent job of it. I mean, it's growing leaps and bounds, way faster than I thought it would. So,
okay. What do you say? One of the most common discussions that happens when there's a third-party discussion, and usually this is more at the presidential level, but my presumption would be that this would happen at the local level as well. In a state like Idaho, what do you say to Republicans who tell you, look, you're going to split the vote and give the race to the Democrats, right? I mean, if the Constitution Party has a good candidate and the Republican Party has a good candidate, you're going to end up splitting the vote, and then the Democrat wins, and that's a concern that I've seen in the comments on third-party pages and stuff. So what's your response to that?
Well, we get that a lot, and it doesn't just come from the Republicans, actually. The Democrats say the same thing in their Democrat-controlled areas. They're like, well, if you vote anything but Democrat, you're going to give the conservatives a vote. It's a common thing, and it's really a common misconception, because if you honestly look at the numbers and the voter turnouts, in most Democrat areas, it's impossible for a Republican to win. I mean, so a third party could come in. I'm trying to think of a more liberal third party, and I can't think of one. But they could come in and run in that and split the vote with the Democrat, and the Republican's still not going to have a chance to win. And that really holds true in Idaho. If you look at the numbers in Idaho, I think, I have to double check, but I believe it's 19 of the legislative districts. It would be impossible. I mean, unless 50 to 75% of the Republicans voted for a Democrat to win in the race. So a good example is District 23, and I use Christy Zito. I love her dearly, a good friend. I use her last race with Laura Bellingotti as a prime example. Laura Bellingotti picked up probably 1,500 Republican votes, and those are the 1,500 establishment Republicans in this district who want Christy out. She picked up 1,500 votes, and Christie still beat her by 3 votes, or not 3 votes, but 2/3 of the vote. I mean, the numbers are ridiculous. Just in Elmore County, there are 2,150 registered Democrats. There's 1,840 some independents. There's about 300 third party registered. That's between Libertarian and CP. So, I mean, the numbers really aren't, I mean, it's just overwhelming. I mean, so in my 2020 race against Representative Blanksmith, I could have split the Republican vote with her right down the line, and we both would have still beat our Democrat opponent by double.
Okay.
So I mean that's something that the Republicans have always liked to use as a ploy to scare you into not advancing liberal agenda, and it's really not true. There are districts in Idaho where the Democrats are in control, and I think there's 5 districts where it's close. So that could possibly be true in those districts. But the whole thing about it is, if you have a rhino or a liberal-minded Republican running in the race, what's the difference between them winning and a Democrat winning? At least with the Democrat, you know what you're going to be fighting. You're going to know what the battles are. So whereas with a rhino, you never know. They could vote one way on something, and you go, yeah, that's right, and then they just totally off course the next thing that's very similar. So, a good example is, right now Scott Bedke, he voted for House Bill 140, and then turns around and goes, oh no, that's not the government's business to be involved with over the mandated vaccines by the medical companies. So, it's you just really never know with moderate or, I'm trying to think of nice ways to say these. I mean, rhino, I guess, is the best way you can put it. You just never know. So, if you have a chance of voting for a true conservative or a rhino, and you're worried about splitting the vote, shouldn't the Republicans actually be voting for the true conservative? Would be the way to go instead of the rhinos. So.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else in closing? And you can kind of let the people know what your website is and where they can go to get involved, and then any other message you want to send to the Idaho citizens.
Well, first, I love Idaho. I swore when growing up I'd never leave the Portland metro area in the Willamette Valley over there. I loved it. It was green, it rained, it was coast. But, after moving to Idaho in 2005, I just really fell in love with it. And when my wife passed in 2011, I thought about moving back, and I just couldn't drag myself away from here. I mean, I love it. We're sitting at a park, so we got a nice green area. Most of the area around here is not like that. It's desert.
Yeah.
But, I still love it. It's just a beautiful state, and I really don't want to see it go the way Oregon did. I'm watching Idaho now do what Oregon did from about 1995 to 2000, and I've seen Idaho do that in the last 2 years. So if you're a true conservative, you really need to just wake up and realize the party isn't looking out for your best interests. The Republican Party is looking out for its best interests. It doesn't care who's holding those seats. All it cares about is that it has those seats. It's power is exactly what it is, and the party could care less if it's liberal power or conservative power, as long as it's their party has the power. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I know lots of Republicans that are just as constitutional and liberty-minded as I am, but that are actually holding office, but they're just too far in between. We need to pay attention at the elections. You need to pay attention to the voting history of your representatives. How do they vote? How do they act? What do they tell you during the election? But what do they do when they're actually in office? It takes very little to destroy a republic. I mean, it takes very little time, and you just can't fight back from it. Stopping the battle before you have to go into it's a much better solution. So let's see. Our website is www.idahocp.com. We also have a Facebook page. I believe, I don't know what its exact is, but I believe it's the same as just at idahocp.com. I'd have to double check that and I'll let you know. But you can search. We have 2 Facebook pages. One of them's inactive. About 2 years ago, our state chair at the time got locked out of it somehow and couldn't get access to it, so it just kind of went defunct, and we started a new page. I believe the new page actually says it's our official page and explains that the old page was lost. And my message is just, pay attention to your elected officials. I mean, I honestly, I'd like to see you voting CP, but I want to see you voting conservative. Conservative is the important thing. I'm Constitution Party, but I believe you vote for the most conservative person in the race, and you maintain conservatism in Idaho. Conservatism is important. Our country was founded on multiple principles and ideas, but they all basically revolved around conservatism. Boy, I cannot say that word today. Conservatism. Smaller and limited government, lower taxes. You tax only for what's necessary. Limited, extremely limited federal government, more limited or less limited state government. But we have two constitutions, the U.S. and then the state constitution, and they both are equally important. And I hear people all the time, "Oh, well, the federal constitution's important." Well, it really is. It's important for limiting the federal government, but the state constitution's really just as important because it tells the states what it can't do also, but it tells them what they can do. And we need to really look at both and follow them. So, just get out and vote conservative. It's a battle we really can't lose. I mean, if we lose it, the country really is honestly going to be lost. I mean, we're right now sitting so close to where our government has no concept of what duties are for the federal government, the state government, which actually holds more power. It's going to go south, and it won't be pretty. I don't want to say we're on the verge, but we're pushing of being on the verge of, losing our republic, and we can't do that.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
All right. Thank you.